We have another doubleheader regional breakdown for you, this time showing us that Branded has adopted a Kristya package into the deck. I didn't really expect to see that. And Exosister takes down its first regional win of the block. Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. Your breakdown here for the Fairbanks Regional is a pretty straightforward one. I don't have a lot out of this Alaska Regional, but to say the least, Sprite's domination has made its way all the way to Alaska. Like, I'm actually quite impressed with this, considering the fact that we had 4 Sprites. We also had a Marincess deck in Top Cut for this event. I wish I had that list to show with for you guys today, but I can only get 2 lists out of this regional to cover this. We also had a Tier Elements in Top Cut, which we have Reaper Wiz's list for you guys here in a second. Then we have a very interesting Kristya branded list that takes advantage of some of the new applications that we just recently seen get released for Branded, which kind of brings a new life into this strategy, which is actually pretty freaking awesome, man. And then, of course, we have a Math Mech deck as well, locking down another top 8 finish. I tell you, man, Math Mech has had so much success this format. Well, we're going to pass on over to these top 8 lists for you guys. All right, the first list we have for you here is Reaper Wiz's fourth place out of this regional. Now, Tier Elements have pretty much started to look a lot more streamlined across the board here. I don't know how many of these lists you've seen, but there's always some sort of Dark Ruler no more usually keeping around. You decide if you want to adapt that Danger package into the deck to find success. This particular variant shows it wanted to play Talents in the main deck as well. You also see the Ultimate Slayer package here being adopted as a side deck tree for this as well. So you got plenty of things going on for you within the generalized core of this deck that shouldn't be much of an issue in terms of, your deck construction. I know a lot of people have looked at, this build and went, do we have to really play King of the Swamps? I think the answer is yes, you do. The cool thing about what we're looking at now with Tier Elements is you can play Fusion Sub in the deck with Polymerization, because the Fusion Sub gives you an additional draw and a recycle. I don't know how many people have really considered that option tree or looked at it, but it is definitely something worth considering, especially if you're looking at Tier Elements pre-Ishizu going, all right, well, this is what I want to mess around with, because you're stuck with this deck in its current iteration for a little while. You may as well get used to testing out some of the cool innovations and stuff that we have going for us out here. So this is actually Reaper Wiz's 4th place list. Not too bad for this regional. Now, 6th place here was where the innovation, this is where the magic happens for me. So remember, Archlord Kristya, you have exactly 4 fairy monsters in graveyard. Special summon this card from your hand. I don't care about that. If summon this swing target fairy monster and add that target to your hand. Alright, neither player can special summon, monsters. If this base card would be sent from the field to the graveyard, placed on the top of your deck instead. I always hate that clause in this card, but you're not summoning it through the conditions of the fairies. No. You have Branded Expulsion here to do that for you. So you can tribute a fusion monster, and then target 2 non-fusion monsters that are banished and or in either graveyard. Special summon both monsters, 1 to each field. If you tribute a fusion monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz as material to activate this card, you special summon both monsters to your field in defense position instead. Oh, well, how are we getting this in the graveyard? Mr. Branded Fusion here allows us to send a light monster from our deck to our graveyard via fusion summoning. Yay, cheesy mechanics. Some other really cool things to note here. I see we also have the End of Anubis down here, so you can kind of go ahead and capitalize on Value Town there. But some of the big things here is you notice that this build has adopted more of a floodgate mentality with this, and goes in. One thing to mention for this profile was they were playing or aiming to play Prosperity over Extrav, but they couldn't afford those, so we're playing Extrav as that compensation to make sure that we can handle, what we need to do. So that is your breakdown for Fairbanks, Alaska. We're going to pass it on over to Arkansas now, so you guys can see a flip side of the equation. What is up with these Sprite decks, man? Holy moly, another Sprite-dominated regional. That's 2 regionals back-to-back for this video that both have 50% of Top Cut being Sprite. Deck borderline tier 0, a lot of you guys ask. It's definitely ahead of the curve in the Tier 1 department. Now, as you can see, once you get past Sprite here, it's kind of where you start to see the other interesting things shifting. You know, you kind of see Tier Elements maintain one of those presences in the format here, where we look at the deck and we're like, oh, you know, like this deck is very, very solid. Has a lot of good option trees. It handles a lot of its matchups relatively well. And then when you shift gears here, further down, Exo Sister has not had a lot of success at all this format, actually. I'm actually very excited to see that Exo Sister got the chance to, you know, stand up for this event and show people that it can do well. We also had Punk continuing its awesome domination as well. Punk is one of those decks that once you kind of see how you want to play it, you know, accessing the pot of greed, your free value that you kind of get out of this, it feels really good. And you also get the chance to see Flaunderies here still holding on. So it's pretty much what we've expected within the sphere of things for this top cut. And like I said, you can definitely see that the meta is shifted in such a way here where you still see a lot of these very common decks that we definitely expected, but there's not much of a reach that you can't see something like Mathmech also creep into that top cut, because it looks like the lower level is now all on an equal playing field across the board. Let's pass on over to those top deck lists. Walking down first place out of this regional was none other than Exo Sister with full Dimension Shifter power, baby. This is the fabled tale that you've heard about, the deck that will stop the top meta contenders. Exo Sisters had a very, very interesting time in this format, trying to keep up with the meta. So when Aaron came out here and said, you know what, we're going to test the waters with this, looks like we finally did it. Dark Roll and Omors for 4 board breaking talents built in to kind of counteract some of the more toxicity with things. And I mean, everything else is what you want to see here. We have no Carpe Diem in this deck. I know a lot of people look at Carpe Diem and they're like, you know, it can blank out a certain card, man. Like, you have to play it. It looks like a lot of the Exo Sister communities started to disagree with, like, I have noticed that, like, the bad players, as people are going to call them, are like, oh my gosh, like, Carpe Diem's so good. And then, like, the more successful players out here that are turning over regional wins are like, oh my god, like, we're winning. So it's definitely interesting to see the discrepancies and mentalities towards the community with Carpe Diem, man. Like, I don't know. Like, if you stick to the mentality of having to play one card, I don't know, it might hinder your potential top. Interesting words of wisdom from dear old Imco40. Before Bold Breakers in here goes in matches doing their job. Ultimate Slayer also. And to explain to the one guy that was asking the other day why we play the Kishi Kill, it's because when you drop the Troubled Sunny, you have the spot removal option off of this. Alright, a few people I think have tended to miss that. So it's definitely one of the more important option pieces here, because Ultimate Slayer is an immediate out to pretty much anything, because your opponent can't respond with monster effects on its activation. So you just take care of whatever threat your opponent has set up for you, and you're like, oh, it's gone. I don't have to deal with it anymore. So I'm very happy to see Exo Sister getting a very, very, very much needed first place here. Next up here is our Tier Elements list. This is Denny Vu. Now this looks pretty good with the Despia package, but what I'm seeing here with a lot of these variants is a lot of players are going to like multiple extremes. You know, like either you just opt to not play, you know, your Despia package in it, or you opt to play it and you just capitalize with your best advantage tree you can. Well, at the end of the day here, ladies and gentlemen, 50 cards took down second place out of this regional, which tells me easy peasyville. Alright, the fact that Fallen of Albaz still gets a chance to do its job. A lot of people have an issue outing a Mirror Jade, by the way, which is kind of interesting. I didn't realize that Mirror Jade would just be such a dominating, like, boss monster out here. But if you can capitalize on it and hold it down, it's doing just fine. Talk about a deck that doesn't need to be hit on a ban list at this point. Alright, this deck is struggling so hard to hold up on its own. But yeah, this is branded to your elements. If this is something you've been wanting to try, now you have a decent shot at doing so with it. Next up is Flaunder. Oh, hello Dark Roller No Mores. No Mystic Mines in here. We're also playing 1 Unexplored Winds in the main and 1 in the side. We have the Ghost Reapers down here so we can punish the opponent. Our targets are Kitagalos, Hulky Fibrax. We're going with the, oh my gosh, we're playing the Sea Angel as well. Okay, hey, I mean, forcing them to not be able to search for the Battle Ocean's quite hilarious. And of course, the Gigantic Sprite and the Cheese Out. Wow, those Ghost Reaper targets are insanity. That we've even made room for the Dragon Buster. Oh my gosh, if you're playing last round, you play against ABC, you're like, this is easy, you know, and then you get your Dragon Buster cherried by the Flounder player, I would probably consider quitting the game at that point. Your opponent is just too good for you. Man, we even got like Alan Burstyn in here and a Simple Nightingale. This is and the Dark Templar. Whoo! I understand why this deck did good. Alright, the last we have here is an awesome Punk hybrid deck here. To kind of show you guys that Punk Synchro is alive, of course, you got your Pot of Greeds in here. Yes, we're playing Terrors of the Overroot. Target one card your opponent controls and one card in the graveyard. Send that card on the field to the graveyard, and if you do, set the other card in the graveyard to your opponent's field. So you get a free rotation off of this. You also get the chance to see Silent Graveyards here, making another run back for this format. But this should be very reminiscent to you of some of the earlier innovations you saw Pack playing out here with the deck and finding success with. So absolutely awesome to see that Punk can still hold up with its own, because once again, you know, Pot of Greed cards, free extenders, you know, your entire Synchro toolbox. A lot of players just can't out a Cheng Ying either. So just massive toolbox, the deck. So what do you guys think about this doubleheader regional breakdown? Please leave a comment down below, tell me what you think. Make sure you guys smash the crap out of the subscribe button. I'll see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.